On this edition of the program, Hegseth sales. The Kamala Harris campaign is still charging you money. And we lay out the schedule for the rest of Trump's cabinet. It's all coming up. Hey, everybody. A real quick reminder. I will be in Washington, D.C. this Sunday, covering the inauguration on Monday. But on Sunday, we are doing a show with Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, my podcast, We're Not Wrong, live at the Studio Theater in Logan Circle. So head on over to Eventbrite, search for We're Not Wrong, and you will find tickets. It's going to be a good time. Come out and join us. We're going to be hanging out afterward. That's We're Not Wrong, live in D.C. this Sunday night at 7 p.m. See you there.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for January 15, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young. And we are in the final days, the waning days of the Biden administration. Might have a breakthrough in the Middle East. That might be finalized by the time that you guys listen to this. There's a lot of maybes that are bouncing around right now. But all eyes politically are here domestically, specifically as Donald Trump's cabinet is now beginning to be heard, beginning to answer questions. It is an unconventional cabinet, and we are going to be joined by Jen Briney to talk about the expectations and the stakes. But I did have a chance to watch Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing today, the majority of it. And that dude's getting confirmed. Like, now I am not in any way curious as to what is going to happen. It's probably going to be on party lines, but I think it'll probably be 52 Republican votes. I don't know if they'll get all 53, but I think it's going to be about 52. And here's the reason why. The Democrats did not have a great strategy to knock him down. I think they were relying on Republicans to be more skeptical than they were. You had a few people that tried to land body shots on him. Kirsten Gillibrand and Elizabeth Warren did okay, but Mazie Hirono of Hawaii just went through like a gigantic laundry list of stuff. None of it particularly landed. And here's my big takeaway from it. The Democrats had an opportunity to point out in a very common sense way that Hegseth's, let's say, unconventional resume was something that should torpedo him. The way you normally do that is by giving him, senses of, okay, well, here's what the job is. What would you do? And if he has shallow or incomplete answers, then you say, okay, well, that's going to speak for itself. If he is unprepared. And I got to say, I don't think that Hegseth was a particularly dynamic speaker when he was attacked, but he was resolute. He's a television personality, so obviously he's going to come off good in the visual medium. He didn't get testy. He didn't get out of pocket. And by the time that Tim Kaine is saying, shame on you for cheating on your wife when you had a 2-year-old kid, and then Mark Wayne Mullen comes back and levies a broadside against everybody else. As soon as it turned into just naked PR from both sides, then I think that we really, really surrender an opportunity to actually ask some competent questions to somebody that is not coming from a position where he has ever handled an organization that big. It just became, partisan warfare where the Democrats were launching nukes and the Republicans were running cover. I will say that the biggest moment that, to me, signified that Hegseth was going to get confirmed was Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. She had been seen as the linchpin as to whether or not he was going to be confirmed. She had waffled for a little bit, but when it came her turn to talk, she led with a Pentagon audit, which would be one of the big selling points from somebody that came from outside of traditional channels to be a Secretary of Defense, because none of the other extraordinarily well-vetted, very ready for the job people were able to have the Pentagon complete a successful audit. And then ran cover for what was the biggest attack line against Hegseth, at least early on, which is comments that Hegseth has had about women serving in combat. Which just, to me, shows how surface level. I was really expecting more from the Democrats. And the conversation that I had with Jen Briney was recorded before the Hegseth hearing. But I will kind of say now that I'm going to adjust my priors, that if Hegseth was the number one target for them and they put that little effort into trying to knock him out, then now I have more of a tendency to believe that everybody's going to get through for Trump. Because here's the other thing, is that when the Democrats come in so hot and it's like, you cheated on your wife, you're an alcoholic, like when it gets personal like that, it's a lot harder for Republicans to get off the reservation. And this is a Republican majority. So if you want to sink the nominations, you have to create an environment where you're going to coax a Joni Ernst over. You are repelling them if you are saying any pushback that you give to Hegseth from the Republican side is going to be aligning with Tim Kaine saying, you cheated on your wife. Why should you care about the oath of, why should we believe you when you take the oath of office when you also took an oath to your wife? Here's the other thing that I think is just a reality of the moment. That room was stocked with Hegseth supporters, and there was a run of a couple minutes where it became kind of a chuckle fest. Republicans were just cracking jokes. It all started with this clip, this exchange between Hegseth and Elizabeth Warren.
Would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years, but you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
I'll
is.
bet you would.
Thank you.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years, but you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals?
Look, I know that those kinds of social media clips are things that are catnip. If you are running for another office or you're trying to raise money, Elizabeth Warren's going to put versions of that up on social media. She probably already has. But it shows you that they're not really serious about knocking him out. Because when you get into that super prosecutorial yes or no sir kind of questions, then you're not giving the person enough rope for them to hang themselves. And there was a lot of that with the Democrats where they were cutting him off when really your only hope of knocking him out. And by the way, I would say it's the same thing for Kash Patel, the same thing for Tulsi Gabbard, the same thing for RFK Jr. The way that you're going to knock them out is by them saying something dumb. So if you keep cutting him off, you are avoiding the possibility of that happening. Anyway, your Secretary of Defense is going to be Pete Hegseth, but he is not the only person for which hearings are taking place, and this is not the ending of the coverage. Indeed, we are going to have continuing coverage of the hearings over the next few weeks. That is because we have our friend Jen Briney joining us, and she does so right now. Joining me now is the host of Congressional Dish, my co-host on We're Not Wrong, who will appear live with me in Washington, D.C. this Sunday at the Studio Theater. Tickets available now on Eventbrite. We're Not Wrong Live. Jen Briney, welcome back to PX3.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
And you're going to be on the show a little bit over the next few weeks because we have a mutual fascination with the Trump cabinet hearings. We will be your hearing aides for the next few weeks, trying to consume as many of these as possible. I know why I'm fascinated by these. Why? I mean, you cover Congress for Congressional Dish, so this is something that's more of a regular occurrence every 4 years. What do the hearings tell you normally?
To be completely honest with you, I don't watch a ton of confirmation hearings. There's usually like one or two I'm interested in and then I move on. But the reason that I watch them is, especially when it comes to foreign policy, I want to know the worldview of the people that are being empowered to negotiate basically war and peace on our behalf.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that I watch the most often because, you know, the president in normal times, they have their own worldviews. You kind of know who that person is. But really, it's like right now you have Anthony Blinken who's going around doing the actual negotiations on a bunch of different fronts. So it's like Joe Biden can tell him, you know, generally this is what I want, but this is the person who's actually saying the words. And I feel like it's really important to find out who those people are, especially when you have someone like Donald Trump coming back into office, which in his first term, we know that he wasn't all that involved in the details. And I just don't think, especially with foreign policy, that that's his thing. Like, I think his thing is, I want to deport a lot of people. He definitely wants the tax cuts. Like, there's certain things that I think he's going to be more involved in.
He likes the big deal, the big top line deal, which is 9 times out of 10 economic. Like, it is a Soleimani away from being mostly economic. You know, he had his moments of muscular foreign interventionalism, but by and large it was, I want to go to China to détente with Xi, or I want to, you know, go to North Korea so I can, you know, insure whatever he insured with that.
Well, and there's like things he's saying that I just don't know. Like, okay, here's a good example. He's saying he wants to take over Greenland. Okay. But does his Secretary of State want to take over Greenland? Because that's the person that would be doing the negotiations. Or does his defense secretary, is this a person who's willing to go and invade Greenland to make it happen if the State Department can't? So I really want to see what these individuals are saying, because if they're gung-ho about these ideas, then I'll take them more seriously than if they're kind of like, yeah, he said he wants to take Greenland, but like we're more concerned about, you know, taking Iran. You know, like, I think that you can learn a lot, or at least read the tea leaves, based on the questions that they'll be answering in these hearings. So I'm just trying to get a vibe for them to see which stories I should be following in the next 6 months.
So here's what we want to do over the next few weeks is that Jen will be on next week and the week after that, and we'll just have a combination of what we've seen over all the hearings that are happening as they unfold. And then on Congressional Dish, I will be helping out with content there. So it's a little crossover event We're gonna have a good time on both shows. Here's why these things fascinate me the most. Number one, this is a very coalitional cabinet. I think we have said this a few times, that every member of this new emerging MAGA coalition kind of got one person that they can be very excited about, and then somebody else that they're going to have to hold their nose on, where it's like, so if you're an establishment person, you're thrilled that Marco Rubio is getting Secretary of State, but also Tulsi Gabbard, who was running for president in the opposite party 4 years ago, is now going to be head of the intelligence operations. Like, there's a lot of a recipe for the Democrats are going to go hard on everybody, presumably. But I think a lot of the Republicans are going to have really stiff questions. And you've already seen Tulsi Gabbard have to say that, well, that spying stuff that I was repeatedly against in Congress, maybe I'm for it. I'm for 702 now. And that was to secure James Langford's support going into her hearings. So I think that they're going to be colorful. You're not going to really be able to tell exactly the super clean lines that you have in the past. Also, Trump is the kind of guy that will get you to a certain point. And you've seen this with a lot of his endorsements for lower office, for like Senate and stuff like that. He'll give you the Truth Social. He'll give you the rub, but he's not going to hold your hand. He's not your dad. Like, he's not going to make sure you get over the line. He's going to get you to a certain point, and then you're going to have to perform. And a lot of these hearings are going to be colorful. There are going to be some questions asked that you don't normally see at these hearings. And these guys are going to have to perform, because if they stumble, I do think that they're dead. Like, I think that it's not outside pressure that was going to kill them before they got the hearings. But if they jumble and bumble over words, or they come off like idiots, I do think that Trump will cut them loose.
Yeah, I mean, just for like the political spectacle, these are going to be more interesting than anything we've seen, at least in the last 8 years. And I actually think these are going to be more interesting than anything we saw in the first Trump administration, because that administration was really staffed with a lot of establishment people. Like, the defense secretary was James Mad Dog Mattis. Like, he is as establishment as it gets. Now we have the Fox News guy. So it's like a very different situation. And so we have and like you said, the coalition doesn't really fit, which is why I want to watch more than one, just to see what lines are in unison. What things are they all saying that they're going to do? I think those are the things we can take more seriously. And I think other things, you'll see that there's going to be so much disagreement that I'm looking at the chaos and being like, okay, if there's a lot of chaos around this topic, I don't think we have to watch it that closely, because it's probably not going to happen. So I'm really looking for unity points. And then, of course, just like juicy, crazy sound clips for my show, because I think we're going to get more than a couple.
Well, let's start with that, because when we were texting back and forth, we had 6 hearings that we were each circling. Let's each go one by one, and I'll start with my number 1 draft pick, and that is Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is somebody that is coming into an extraordinarily, some might say too well-oiled machine in the Pentagon. And that's part of the reason why Pete Hegseth, I think, is an attractive pick for a few people, that you're not just getting a same old sort of pick for Secretary of Defense. But as you pointed out, he is mostly known by people in our modern era, and don't at me. Yes, he ran the Veterans Charity. Yes, he served himself in the military, but he's mostly known for being the weekend host on Fox and Friends, and along with Tulsi Gabbard is part of the hot guys and girls selections that Trump put out, because very rarely do you have one, let alone multiple picks with a juicy tongue wagging Instagram photos like both of them have. So I'm interested in Hegseth, not only because I think he seems to be the consensus pick for Democratic firepower. You've got a situation in the past involving a woman that never went further than an investigation, but That has shades of kind of Kavanaugh to it. He's already had to proactively defend himself because his mom wrote him a nasty letter during one of his divorces. His mom went on Fox News to talk about how that shouldn't have gotten out. So Hegseth is my number one.
Yeah, Hegseth I think is interesting to me because we don't really know what his personality is. Like, because he's the weekend Fox guy, I mean, you and I kind of know when you have to speak into a microphone a lot, and really, like, as much as we speak into a microphone, it's not a daily thing. You know, you'll just say stuff, and there's your on-air personality, and then there's your off-air personality, and I know he's done some, like, goofy skits because that's what the producers told him to do. Like, I doubt it was his choice to throw an axe at a band member. Like,
yes, he accidentally overthrew on an axe throwing bit and it bounced up and hit a band person.
Yeah, so it's like when we kind of dismiss him as the Fox News guy, that's why, because he was doing stuff for television.
He was doing morning television. Yeah.
And so there's just things that you have to do sometimes that are goofy because you have to kill the time, and your producers have a lot of say over like what you're actually doing that day. I think in these confirmation hearings, we're going to find out who he is and what he thinks about running the military. And for me personally, I'm fascinated to know what kind of orders are you going to be willing to take from Donald Trump? Because I am worried about him abusing his power. Specifically his power as the commander-in-chief to do things like bust up protests against his administration. So we did have defense secretaries during his first administration that said, like, oh no, there's a line that we're not crossing with you.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what line does Hegseth have, and like, did he get this pick because there isn't a line? And I think that is something that the Democrats are going to be asking about. So that's why that's one of the ones I'm going to watch.
All right, who's your number one pick?
Yeah, my number one pick along the same lines as Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, senator, we know a lot about him. The thing I know most of all about him is that he is a unrepentant warmonger. And so the fact that he is going to be our Secretary of State, I have a lot of concerns about. I think he's going to be handed a lot of reins in terms of his leash. I don't think he's going to be all that policed. So I really want to hear what his number one priorities are, and I'm pretty certain Venezuela is going to be on the top of his list. It's not something we
that
talk
has
about
been
much.
Something that
we don't talk about it much anymore since their first coup attempt in I think it was 2018-ish. But Marco Rubio was all up in that. So for him to be empowered in this way, I want to hear what his priorities list are, especially as for Congressional Dish, I'm reading through the defense authorization. So I want to kind of match, like, what am I hearing from these people? Has there been anything authorized that no one's really talking about in that bill that just became law? So I'm really, he's probably, out of all of the picks, he's the one I'm the most worried about. So that's why I'm going to watch that confirmation.
Which I'm very excited because I think you have a beat on what you want to listen for. And I think that is going to be the most cordial of the hearings. I think it's going to be 5 minutes. Hey, how you doing? What'd you eat yesterday? They all know each other. Marco Rubio's been in the Senate for a while now. He is well ensconced, especially with the committee that he's going to be speaking to. So I think it's going to be a bit of a backslap fest. I think he's probably the most likely person that will be waiting for Donald Trump when he is inaugurated next Monday. But I think you have a very specific eye on that. And I think the Venezuela thing is very, very fascinating too, because since the first Trump administration, they've had what seems to be a free and fair election, and the leader just decided to not agree with it and has stayed in power. So there's that has only gotten more interesting since the last time that, as you pointed out, there was a coup with a lowercase c. How would you describe? We just like parked somebody that we said was the president outside of the borders and said,
"Yeah,
go."
It was
Rise
the
up,
dumbest
people.
coup of all time. Like, we just said this guy, not the guy that's president that lives in the presidential palace and all that. The other guy, his name's Juan. We're going to say he's the president. We're going to give him all of Venezuela's money. It was so weird, and it totally failed. That's what they did in the first Trump administration, and Marco Rubio was 100% on board with that. And like you said, they all know each other, so like this is, when I say I'm looking for unity, this is where I'm looking for like uniparty unity. When I see the
Yes.
Democrats being like, yes, let's go forward with this great idea you have, it's like, okay, all the red flags. So I'm going to be taking notes on the stuff that especially the Democrats seem chill with.
All right, my second pick, Pam Bondi. Obviously, this would have been the number one hearing if Matt Gaetz had indeed retained his position as Attorney General pick. He was knocked out. He is now a television host on One America News Network, but it is Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi who will take that position. I don't think that this one is going to be as contentious as Hegseth's per se. She has a bit of a better reputation, at least amongst Republican politics. What I'm interested in is to see exactly how hard the Democratic resistance the Democratic resistance playbook that we had seen in the previous 8 years still exists today. Yeah. Because that's what I don't know. You know, you had a lot of Democratic senators advancing the Lake and Riley Act that they killed last term, just last week. So they're going to vote on that coming up in the next few days in the Senate. And we're going to see how many
So a fun little nugget about that one is that the House passed a House bill. So it's an HR, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
The Senate is working on a bill with the same name, but it's a Senate bill. So they're actually two different bills. So the House would have to vote again. So we actually don't know how serious of an effort this is because it's going to look like it's passed both chambers, but it won't.
But it has not. It has not passed both chambers.
Yeah,
well,
so
we do know that at the very least, I think there was only 8 Democrats that voted against advancing it to a final vote. So
the support is there.
Yeah, we don't know what is the face of Democratic resistance to Donald Trump 2025. And I don't think the Democrats really know it. And I think if you're going to get a bit of a litmus test on that, it's going to be to see how hard people will go against Pam Bondi, who has said a lot of the stuff that was unsayable over the last 4 years in terms of Donald Trump's defeat in 2020 that she would consider to be a victory. And if you're going to go hard on her, this is the place to go hard on her. But I'm curious to see who's going to do it and how hard they're going to go.
Yeah, I am too. This is one that I probably wouldn't watch if you weren't making me. And I think the reason is I don't know how much we're going to learn. I think it'll be like political fireworks, and in that way it'll be interesting. But I think no matter what, for DHS secretary, we're going to get a fire-breathing, immigrant-hating, let's kick them all out.
Well, this is the AG. This is, Attorney General,
Oh, yeah. Well, same thing.
Same, yeah.
I feel like when it comes to, that's probably the thing I'm most concerned about, and I think that it's just inevitable that that's going to happen, that these mass deportations are going to happen. So I think that when it comes to the Justice Department, I don't know, maybe I should be taking it more seriously than I am, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This is one I don't really know what to do about this one, because it's like, I'm afraid of Donald Trump going after his political opponents, but Biden just did that. So it's
the bloom is off the rose a little bit. At least it wouldn't be crazy. All right, who's your second pick?
Second pick, I'm gonna say Tulsi.
Tulsi's gonna be
spicy.
interesting. The biggest thing that I want to know with Tulsi is whether or not Bernie votes for her, because I would actually feel like worse about Bernie just as a human, because that lady quit her job to support him in 2016. She left. Granted, she was not the favorite of the Democratic establishment leading up to it, but she very publicly made a mess at the most sacred moment of Democratic unity at the DNC after those emails came out. She walked away from her leadership position within the convention, and it set her apart from her party that eventually drove her out of it. I don't know. I think regardless of where he stands ideologically, I think he owes her one. He owes her a vote.
Yeah, but I think her the way she answers the questions are going to be really important for that vote.
Huge.
Yeah, like which Tulsi are we going to see? Is she going to be the person who's been going on Joe Rogan for the past, 8 years and has talked to Chris Williamson and generally is anti-war? And I think it could be a really fascinating thing to have her in charge of the DNI. 'Cause it's like, if people don't understand, like that is more powerful than the CIA director. Like she's in charge of all the spooks in that position, in which case she would have the ability to like look behind the scenes, find out what kind of crazy stuff they're doing and maybe shut it down. This is the type of stuff that you would think the Tulsi that goes on Joe Rogan would do. But is she going to be the Tulsi that also plays games in Congress? Because she's already saying, well, all that spying stuff that I've been telling everyone is really terrible. Like, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything about that. So it's like, which one is going to show up? I'm curious. Or is she just going to say what she needs to say to get the job and then go and f it up? Sorry, but like,
that's
what,
fine. Yeah.
What is she going to do? We don't really know. So I'm curious to see how she answers the questions because she could be playing it a couple different ways. And maybe honesty is not the best policy for her. Like maybe she needs to kind of say the things to get into the job. Like, I don't know.
Get hired. Yeah.
This is one where it's like politically I'm fascinated. Like that's probably for me, just selfishly, I'm politically fascinated by this one. I don't know how much I'm going to learn because she doesn't really know what's going on there yet. Like I think watching her, if she gets the job with oversight committee hearings, those are far more instructive for like what's going on in the world when she actually gets back there. But for this one, this is more just like get out the popcorn and, watch it.
I think it's fascinating because she and my third pick are two people that have over the last several years become very comfortable being kind of Molotov cocktail pundits. Like that's their role in the political ecosystem is to go on podcasts and say the thing, go on social media, say the thing and say, well, you want to know what? If things were just, this would happen and this would happen, this would happen. And that's kind of what's fascinating about this Trump administration is you got a few people that have put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of words, both written and spoken, saying what they ought to do. And now guess what? You're about to be the boss. Like you would be the person that would have that responsibility. And so there's a little bit of like, well, how serious were you? Were you just funning around the whole time? Were you just saying stuff because it made you a good guest? How competent are you to do it? But to the Tulsi thing now, she's got a lot of people that have questions. A lot of the establishment has questions, but she is part of that outer end of the MAGA coalition, the new MAGA coalition, where, theoretically she wouldn't be immediately entitled to support from a bunch of Republicans that she used to call, fascists like 4 years ago. But now they're going to back her theoretically.
The Democrats fascists too.
Exactly. But she has no love from the other side. The other side has hated her more recently. The side she came from. The Democrats hate her way more than the Republicans hate her. So,
but I think it'll be an interesting litmus test for the Democrats, at least the ones that say that they care about being anti-war and are against the surveillance state and all that stuff. Because if you vote against her, she's the best chance we've got in a long time to do something about the out-of-control spooks. And so if you're voting against her because you're pissed that she was mean to your party, it just shows you where your loyalties lie.
Because she made Debbie Wasserman Schultz have to work for a living for 5 minutes. Like,
right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, on that note, because a lot of the same issues are there, I would say mine is Kash Patel. My third pick is Kash Patel at FBI, because if Tulsi Gabbard has made her way of being a more common sense, bipartisan, third way forward sort of voice in this new media space, Kash Patel has been a cartoon of raw MAGA support. Man did a children's book where he was an all-knowing wizard and Trump was a beleaguered king. He has written books where for grown-ups that named names of people that he felt were overstepping their bounds. That being said, he does seem to be an intelligent guy. What I find fascinating about his hearing is that he's going to have to put on his church clothes, and he's not going to be Benny Johnson guest Kash Patel. He's not going to be online social media Kash Patel. He's going to have to be an adult in the room where even some of the Republicans, the more staid Republicans, are going to have to say, okay, I can see this man behind the big desk at the Hoover building or at the FBI's headquarters.
And so, when I look at the Justice Department, this one is more interesting to me than the Bondi one. And it's because he is such a shark in, like, I'm going after people type ways. So, and the FBI has such a long history of being shady.
Yes.
So, to put this guy in charge of it, he's going to have to be more of an adult in this room. But what if he just can't help himself? I do think
and that's what makes it interesting.
It does. And I don't, most hearings that I watch when it's like an investigative hearing or something like that, it's like generally 2 to 3 hours. These can be 8 hours a day for multiple days. You don't really know how long they're going to be until they're over. And when you get to the later hours of these, when they're tired and they're annoyed and like it's been tough questions and you can tell they don't respect these members of Congress. If it gets contentious like that, then towards the end of the hearings, you see who these people really are.
Yeah.
And so for him, I'm curious to see that, because out of all of the like justice type appointments, he's the one that I'm like, oh boy, like you could go completely crazy with your power. And he's a scary one.
I mean, but also it's kind of the same. The upside for Kash Patel is the same upside for Tulsi Gabbard, right? Because it's they have made their bones saying, hey, there's a lot of shady stuff that happens, and I want to talk about it. You know, Kash Patel's thing is like, hey, I think that we need to shut down 3 or 4 floors of the FBI to knock off all the middle managers that are causing all the problems and send them out into the field.
And as someone who watches government, I just think that like slashing things for the sake of slashing them is not exactly intelligent ways of running government. So like, for instance, I know we get annoyed with the FBI, but they also are the ones that will come and investigate murders. And I think we want those types of investigations. Like we had a couple pipe bombs. We keep talking about it on January 6th. Like it's the FBI that's going to look into like what happened there. Who was it that did that? Like the FBI does investigations that we actually want.
I think you could have ended your sentence with the pipe bombs with "It's the FBI."
Well, I did not say that. So. But yeah, so I don't think the idea of like slash and burn government, I don't respect it. And so the idea that is what he's saying was, I think it.
Well, yeah, I think his point with that, and if I'm not characterizing it correctly, then people can email in, but I think his point was less to take out headcount, but more to put more agents in the field where things like murders are taking place, and less time in strategy meetings where they're trying to out-game situations that they probably shouldn't even be involved in the first place, like crossfire.
How do we entrap brown kids into being terrorists?
Yes, or entrap white. Hey, I'll tell you what, DEI, they did spend the last 4 years entrapping white kids into trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan. So, they have expanded the color palette of people that they would like to entrap and make do something illegal so they can arrest them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's the whether or not he's going to do a good job. Let's set all that aside and let's just look at what we're going to see here. You're going to get really, really, really tough questions, and I think some of the most tough are going to be from the Republican side of the aisle for Kash Patel. Why? Because I think there's a lot of people in the Republican Party that are tied into the idea that the FBI should be a stable organization, and that Kash Patel is going to be a corrosive element to it. And whether or not they believe it deserves reform, I think that stability is what they prize the most. And Kash Patel is not somebody that they believe that can bring it. And so he's going to face really pointed questions from both sides of the aisle. He is a provocateur. So he is somebody that I think in his natural habitat would love to go on national television or in front of C-SPAN cameras and light into some of the people that are on those that are asking him questions, but he's not going to be allowed to do it. He's going to have to look like a shiny shoes man that is the head of a major organization that has a lot of power. So can he keep it in his pants? We will find out. All right, you have one more pick.
I don't know much about him, so that's the other thing about these confirmation hearings. If you don't know a lot about these people, this is where you learn. So he's a good example of that. Same with Pam Bondi. I know nothing about her. So it's it's just a good learning opportunity for the people that I'm eventually going to probably see in oversight committee hearings. Just to kind of get to know the characters.
And I know for you, because you've made multiple episodes about him, that your third pick is somebody that will be very interesting as he is gotten to known by the rest of America, right?
Yeah, and this is definitely a popcorn one, but like I have to watch the RFK Jr. one.
Yeah.
I have to, because just like with Tulsi, it's people have emotions about him that really don't have anything to do with his policies. Like the Democrats hate him because he started running as a Democrat and then he ran as an independent, and so that's just like they're pissed that he's not loyal to the party, even if they agree with him on some things. And then he's branded as a vaccine wacko, and like I don't know enough about vaccines to judge that, but like I don't know, maybe. So it's and then the Republicans, some don't like him because he's been a Democrat his entire life. So it's just politically it's going to be fascinating. And then when it comes to health, the Secretary of Health and Human Services is in charge of the FDA. So it's our food, our drugs. If there's another pandemic, like he's in charge of their response. So I really want to know details now that he's had a few months to think, like, how would I do this? I do think that he's a serious person, regardless if you agree with his opinions or even know what they are. That's a big problem with RFK Jr. too. People just project whatever they hear upon him. So I'm excited to see what he says in his own words.
Well, the DNC ran a smear campaign on him for the last 8 months, instead of just beating him in a primary, which would have made your candidate look better, and you would have been able to collect his coalition for your candidate. And instead, they drove him across the street, and now he's sitting in a cabinet hearing.
But we're also forgetting that for a little while there, the RNC was running ads against him too. So the American people have had all kinds of nonsense thrown at us as if that's fact because they were running against the man. Yeah. And so I'm curious to see.
I mean, and also he's an eccentric. Whatever you might think of RFK Jr., he still did a video where he talked about hitting a bear and dropping its corpse off in Central Park while Roseanne laughed along next to him. Like there's weird stuff. He's an odd dude. He had a sex scandal in the middle of all of it, or maybe a sexting scandal. Who knows? We don't know exactly how close things got with Olivia Nuzzi. Still, there's some Kennedy wackiness that does just kind of envelop the man.
When you talk about characters,
he's a character.
He's a character. So that's just going to be entertaining. It's going to be entertaining. So, I'm watching that one.
All right. So there we go. Those are just a few of them. I don't know how many we will get blanket coverage on, but we are definitely going to have coverage on not only this podcast over the next few weeks, but also we will have stuff on Congressional Dish. So go ahead and follow that and sign up for the Patreon, right? Because that's where we're going to put. A lot of it's
going to be on the Patreon.
We're going to put stuff on the Patreon for Congressional Dish. It's going to be a great time. Jen, are you excited to go to DC?
Of course. I love meeting our audience members. So I'm super stoked for the live show. These are just the best times. And I think this venue is going to be better than the last. So
it will.
If you're in the DC area, give us another try. But
Sunday, 7 p.m., we will be live in Washington, D.C. That is Inauguration Eve. TikTok might be banned.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's all coming up then. Jen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you support this show. It's our Substack. Head on over there, get bonus episodes. We'll talk more about that in a second. Here are some of the stories that we didn't have a chance to talk about. Senator John Curtis has expressed his concerns about Trump's national security nominees at a Politico live event on Tuesday. He said former Representative Tulsi Gabbard hasn't done enough to win his DNI confirmation vote. and he is undecided on Pete Hegseth. This was, of course, before his hearing. Curtis criticized Gabbard for not meeting with him, saying that her nomination was like a blank sheet of music. Gabbard, of course, faces bipartisan skepticism over her past national security criticisms and Syria dealings. On evaluating nominees, Curtis emphasized thorough vetting is crucial to advising the president effectively. He said questioning nominees helps rather than opposes the president, and stressed character evaluation while acknowledging human imperfection. Curtis is, of course, a moderate GOP vote. But again, to go back to what I said before at the beginning of the show, that's the kind of vote that is going to think twice about aligning with a super knives out, how dare your personal life be so terrible kind of strategy by the Democrats. You know, you got to create a golden bridge for votes like these if you want to sink the nominees. And I just don't think that if we're looking at the Hegseth thing, at least with Hegseth, I think he is going to earn that vote. He is going to get confirmed because, in part, he was able to play effective defense as opposed to trip over his own words. Michelle Obama will skip Trump's inauguration on Monday. Barack Obama issued a statement acknowledging disagreements with Republicans while emphasizing the need for good faith and grace despite differences. This follows Michelle's absence from Jimmy Carter's funeral. Of course, Barack will attend the inauguration, having previously sat with Trump last week at former President Carter's funeral. The former president stressed their importance of a peaceful transfer of power and congratulated Harris and Walz on their campaign. The Obama era is over. You know, I wrote this on Substack on Monday, an article essentially saying, why are the institutions that shredded Donald Trump in 2017 now either not shredding him or being outright nice to him? Why is it Orange Man good? And part of where I landed was we're just at the end of a thing. The last several, decades, really, 2 decades, close to 2 decades, since 2008. We're essentially the Obama and Trump era, right? Trump was a reaction to Obama. Obama struck back with the Biden term. And, then Trump wins, which means that kind of both things are, the Obama administration or the era is just like dead. Nobody else is coming out of that machine and succeeding right now. The next Democratic president of America will have done their own thing, in my opinion. But also for MAGA, there's more road behind them than there is in front of them now. Maybe J.D. Vance legs it out. That would be, it would put Trump in pretty rare air, right? It would be the Reagan thing. Reagan put his vice president in the White House because he was popular enough. But in general, I think that part of what we're seeing is just a lot of people playing touch and go, playing fast and loose, because they don't know exactly what the rules are going forward. The one thing that's for sure is that immigration is now a bipartisan issue. Democrats have mostly got the message on that. Israel and Hamas are at their closest point in months to agreeing to a ceasefire deal that could halt the devastating 15-month-long war in Gaza and release Israeli and American hostages, Qatar said on Tuesday. Quote, "We believe that we have reached the final stages," said Foreign Ministry spokesman Majad al-Ansari. An Israeli official who spoke on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the talks said the deal is now in Hamas's hands. The first phase of the proposed deal would involve the release of 33 living hostages during a 42-day ceasefire in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, according to U.S. officials. Over the course of the war, ceasefire negotiations have faltered at the 11th hour on several occasions, but further reporting on this seems to suggest that it is Donald Trump's pressure that is bringing this to a head. And there are, this is a framework that has apparently been around since last summer. I don't think that Israel would have ever taken a framework like this if Sinwar was not dead. Sinwar's dead now. So we will see whether or not it happens. But essentially, it's another prisoner swap, which, you know, the expectation for years now, long before this war, has been for every one Israeli, there are several Palestinians that get released. So there will be a multiple of Palestinian prisoners released. The ones who have been convicted of murder will be sent to friendly countries. So Qatar, Turkey, stuff like that. And then Palestinians will begin to be able to resettle in northern Gaza on a staggered timeline. But I have always said that this is probably the sweet spot for something to get done, because Trump can claim that he did it, Biden can claim that he did it, and this conflict, which again has now lasted 15 months, will be able to have some kind of secession. And that is it for our update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go if you want to get on our Substack, get our 2 bonus episodes. Our episode on Monday that covers the Sunday talk shows. They have been good lately, I gotta say. We did a little bit more in the LA fires on that episode, and there was a 12-minute interview with Jance Dance Vance, the vice president-elect, soon to be the 50th vice president of the United States, that gave a little bit of a sense of where we're going in the first few days of the Trump administration. Anyway, go ahead. Get on the team. $3 a week. If you buy me a cup of coffee, then you can get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Way cheaper than that at the annual rate. Less than $100 for over 150 bonus episodes. Or episodes. Anyway. Now on to Mr. Dave Levinthal, the money man. Here we go. We got questions about Kash, and that means we bring in the money man, Dave Levinthal. How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you as always, Justin. I'm doing great in this crazy week here in Washington, D.C. The calm before the proverbial storm.
The Biden administration is they are playing their violins like the band in Titanic as they slowly sink beneath the inky waves, and we have MAGA 2.0 that is dawning on Inauguration Day less than a week away. But I want to talk about the Democratic campaign that, at least financially, seems to know no end. And that is the Harris Walls campaign. They're still charging people who set up recurring payments to their campaign. We're going to get to that in a second, because what I want to talk about first is something that is breaking literally now. This just dropped, and that is a story you, my man, wrote for Rolling Stone about some thievery amongst the Democratic Party, specifically a rogue treasurer that was appropriating funds. Tell the story.
So to set the stage, I've been tracking for the past several years a series of thefts that have been occurring from political committees of every political stripe, Democrats, Republicans, left, right, up, down, whatever, there have just been a number of incidents, dozens and dozens. We're really into the hundreds now, where we've had political committees lose money, sometimes a little, maybe a couple $100, and sometimes a whole heck of a lot, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars in extreme cases, because of theft of one sort or another. Theft, misappropriation, call it what you will. It's money that has been taken from a political committee that should not have been taken from that political committee, legally speaking or otherwise. And so I've been going through FEC, Federal Election Commission records, as I am wont to do, and noticed that back late last year, there had been one particular treasurer. Her name is Catherine Buchanan, who works for a number of different Democratic committees, particularly those in the state of Virginia. And suddenly she was gone. She was being dropped. And that seemed a little bit odd, and got some records that have indicated.
Is there a lot of political activity in Virginia?
Just a little bit, you know.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just where everybody who works in D.C. actually lives.
Right. If you've ever spent 8 seconds in Alexandria, Virginia, for example, you will know that it is the capital of D.C. political finance through and through. But in fact, the 2 U.S. senators from the great state of Virginia, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, employed this woman as their treasurer, Tim Kaine for his campaign committee and Mark Warner for his leadership political action committee. And federal records that we obtained, and that you can read the Rolling Stone article, we'll go into great detail about, indicated that they got rid of her because they believed that she had misappropriated funds from their committee. Misappropriation, their word. So the accusation, which was pretty strong, was that she was basically stealing from them, although they didn't give an exact number. They, in one case, said that she had tried to wire money back to the campaign in what they interpreted to be trying to reimburse them for the money that was improperly taken. But this is not the only couple of committees. There's a few others as well that are involved. And what I can tell you about it is that the Federal Election Commission is investigating, that law enforcement is investigating, and that the committees that have been affected have been in contact with federal regulators and law enforcement. It seems like a pretty situation. It is reminiscent of one that happened more than a decade ago with a woman by the name of Kindy Durkee, who had stolen millions of dollars from Democratic committees, including $4.5 million from the then senator, U.S. Senator in California, Dianne Feinstein, lost $4.5 million because of that from her committee. Now, important to note that these are allegations. Nobody has been convicted of anything.
Sure.
Buchanan has not, so far as we know, been charged with anything at this point. There has been no trial, but the fact that you have 2 U.S. senators and other top Democrats saying, look, there are some major financial shenanigans, and naming their treasurer in these documents is a pretty strong indication, short of an indictment, that there are some not so great financial things afoot, and that this is just the latest, not so greatest example of where political committees are being bled out by people who are trying to get money in ways that are not above board, at least the allegation in this case.
You know, and we've talked about this in the past, that the current meta of political fundraising is just a gigantic target for malfeasance or fraud or robbery when it comes to this kind of stuff, because the money's gigantic. These campaigns are, by their very nature, kind of slapdash. You're putting people together very quickly. They are often not hired with a lot of lead time. Not everybody knows where everything is. And as we see, they don't really have to be particularly financially responsible. Like, money has to get spent. It has to leave. It has to go out one way or another. A lot of these campaigns remain in debt for years, if not decades. I know that's another hobby of yours, is finding some of the oldest campaigns that still have outstanding debts that are listed to them via the FEC.
I clearly need new hobbies.
Well, look, you are doing God's work. But what bothers me is that the other side of this is that no politician wants to say that they were robbed from, or that they did not know where the money is, because that's a material hit against the one thing that matters, their ability to get elected. And so if people are just going to be able to walk away with money and rob these campaigns over and over again, and there is no incentive for the campaigns or the candidates themselves to say, hey, I'd like to raise my hand and say I've been robbed, then this is just going to keep happening. And the money that comes in at these insane levels are just, going to continue to fall out for we're going to look at Kamala Harris building a $100,000 set for the Call Her Daddy lady as a really responsible financial thing, as opposed to just out and out theft.
Yeah, and you don't want to be a donor thinking that your $100 that you plunked down or $1,000 or $10,000 is going anywhere but toward the election of the person you want to get elected.
That's it.
Or the political committee that has a cause and is advancing an effort that you believe in, and that you're so behind it that you're willing to donate your hard-earned money to support it. And you definitely don't want to think that your $1,000 or whatever donation you've given is going into the pocket of some scammer. And many of these cases, a lot of people, when I talk to them about this, say, well, how does this happen in the first place? And the answer is different every time. Sometimes you have like old school check in the mail, check washing, or mail theft. And that is something that happens time and again. Other times it's cyber theft, where you have a phishing scam. Somebody at the campaign, which has been created very quickly, may not have the best safety practices put in place, will click a bad link, and suddenly, a fake invoice gets created and they pay it. And they're actually paying some dude in, pick your
Moldova
country halfway around the world, and there the money is going instead of the advertising company to pay your bill for putting up a television ad on television. And then other times you have what in essence is an internal job, where you have somebody who is not like literally digging their hand into the petty cash drawer of the campaign, but doing the next best thing, and oftentimes something that's going to be far more damaging to the campaign than just that. And there's other ways to steal money from a political campaign too, but your point is spot on, which is that political campaigns, political committees, there are some that have great practices put in place, are very secure. Those are the ones that usually have been around for a little bit longer, but others just simply don't have that infrastructure and are at grave risk of getting bilked out of the money that they are raising very quickly and trying to spend very quickly, oftentimes in huge amounts. And it's very easy. I mean, where do scammers want to go? They want to go to that. This is, financial Darwinism here. You're going to go to the
where is the money?
Okay, you're going well, why do you rob banks? Well, that's where the money is. This is
also it's like usually organizations that traffic in tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or on the presidential level, billions of dollars, have a team that is dedicated to keeping their finances in order. And by the way, we're just talking about outside scammers, people who are trying to rob a organization. We're not even talking about the white collar crime that essentially is apparently what we are talking about here in the case that you are saying for your new Rolling Stone piece. But these campaigns don't. I mean, by and large, like all these people, reasonably just met each other a few months ago, days ago sometimes, and the money is just now so big where you're regularly seeing house races that can get into the multi-million dollars, tens of millions of dollars, especially some of these big Senate seats. You have even safe Senate seats. Like Larry Hogan getting into that Maryland Senate race meant that Chuck Schumer had to pump that up to far more, tens of millions of dollars more than they would have otherwise. I don't know. I'm glad that you wrote about it, because I think that, and we're going to get into this other thing on the more ethically dubious side of fundraising, but like as the money continues to get bigger, and we have no indication that it's going to shrink or slow at any time soon, this will just continue to be a problem. And it's not just going to be the regular way that we're used to campaigns wasting money, which is paying themselves or their friends so they can do menial tasks that could probably be done for cheaper. This is just actual money disappearing, either
and quickly,
through white collar
insider
trading or
Justin,
outside.
This is even before we get to the notion of scam packs. Okay?
Yes,
These
which
political
we did before with the texting, but which we got great feedback on, just to track down who exactly is texting you.
And if I could just note this, okay, there's some good news here. Okay, this is not all doom and gloom.
Good.
The good news is that there is a man. His name is Richard Zeitlin. Who is Richard Zeitlin? Richard Zeitlin is a telemarketer from Las Vegas who I began investigating along with two of my colleagues in 2017 when I was working at the Center for Public Integrity. And long
flashback.
story short, because it took 18 months. It took 18 months to report and publish this story, but Sarah Kleiner and Chris Zubak-Skis, my two colleagues, were able to unravel this massive network of scam charities and political action committees that had stolen, in essence, hundreds, likely millions and millions of dollars from tens of thousands of people, all in the name of doing great work to support political causes. And in fact, 90 to 99% of the money that was being raised was going right back into the pocket of the telemarketers. Richard Zeitlin was arrested in 2023 on the strength of that reporting, sat for a year in a jail cell, denied bail by the judge, and just pleaded guilty last month and was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his actions. One of his alleged co-conspirators just this past week pleaded guilty to charges related to this as well. So the federal government sometimes will get on this, but oftentimes these are the exceptions and not the rule. So just as the old adage is buyer beware, what we're talking about here is donor beware. Before you give a red cent to any political cause, make sure you know what you're donating to. Make sure you know that this is a at least semi-reputable political organization. Look at the fine print. Look at the bottom of the email. And hey, passions are charged. People are just going nuts and losing their minds during a campaign season, and you want to support your team as much as possible. The fact of the matter is there are so many people out there looking to scam you. They are looking to abuse you. They're looking to exploit you, and they're looking to take your money and use it for a reason other than the reason you want to give it. So be your own best defense. Don't rely on anyone else. Don't wait for the government to get around to passing a rule or regulation or the FEC investigating. You make sure that you're out front protecting your own pocketbook, and that's the best that you can do at this point until something changes, because it really truly is the Wild West.
And by the way, you have done good work on that which is illegal. There is also an entire version of those kinds of packs that are technically legal. They're just useless. And by useless, I mean useless from you, the donor's perspective, in terms of doing anything. They're very useful in filling their own pockets by just dotting the I's and crossing the T's correctly on the paperwork. But then we get into this.
Up to that line, that magic line between when the FBI will start knocking on your door and when you're too small fry not to. So there's a whole massive gray area of scam packs or scammy packs that, again, are legal. They haven't done anything wrong by creating themselves. The law allows for it, but they're doing things that at least do not pass the smell test for most people in how they're using the money that you're donating.
And then we get to this, because I'm ready, as we sit here on a Tuesday afternoon, Dave, to do a little PSA to the PX3 listeners and indeed everybody in the political world. Friends don't let friends click the recurring button on a political donation. Not even once. Not even once should you, your friend, your families, your loved ones ever click a recurring button. This has become, in the big leagues, the new pernicious question. The Trump campaign got dinged for making their recurring button pre-checked. So when you checked out, if you weren't looking at things, then you were going to start making recurring payments into their campaign. They were chastised for that. And now we get a news story that the Kamala Harris campaign, that anybody who checked the recurring box on Act Blue, they are still being charged. They were being charged after the election, and there's like a wiggle room where some people were like, okay, you charge in December. Not the best, but also not the worst. There's probably some stuff to clean up. There are all these stories. But they've charged now in January, and we're wondering exactly when this is gonna end, and it doesn't seem like it is.
No, it doesn't seem like it is. And Politico had some great reporting that hit this square between the eyes and raised the question, put the question to the Harris campaign, well, what exactly is going on here, and will this end? And what we heard back from that is that, well, it's not really going to Harris. It's going now to the DNC, and it depends on who you're actually donating it to. And is it the Joint Fundraising Committee or the campaign? I mean, everyone's situation can be a little bit different depending on what you signed up for, what you agreed to in terms of those reoccurring contributions. Are you donating directly to the campaign? Are you donating to the Joint Fundraising Committee? What was your intention in the first place? Again, the easiest thing that you can do here, PSA right back from me, is when you go to make a political donation, it doesn't matter who you're donating to.
Yeah.
Be careful. Present good hygiene when
Yes.
you go to donate. And just like if you don't want that magazine subscription to Model Train Monthly or the reoccurring charge on your credit card for whatever video service that you used once and are never going to use again, but they keep charging you every month, the $9.99 for it. It's the same principle that's in place for political committees. It's just as simple as not checking that box. As much pressure as they will put on you, and as much as they want you to, and beg and plead and cajole you to do it, resist the urge.
Yes.
And if you want to
Hashtag
give every
resist.
month, great. Go ahead and give every month. It is your right to do so. But just go back at the end of April after you made a contribution in March and just manually do it again. And both the Democrats and the Republicans make it very, very easy for people to make another contribution after you've already given them your information. It's one of the biggest selling points for Act Blue over the years to say, hey, we're sort of like Amazon for political donations. You put your information in, and if you want to make another $100 contribution to any of the people in our network who use Act Blue, well, just as simple as clicking a button. And the Republicans have caught up in that respect as well. But that just requires an extra 10 seconds of your time, and it can save you a whole lot of heartache and headache and financial angst in the end because you didn't click that box.
How much of this is a responsibility for the platforms like WinRed and Act Blue? Because like this is grody, and the reporting in Politico is that, well, the money is now going to go to the party,
right? And
before we even get to the really, all right, well, number one, that wasn't disclosed anywhere. You didn't get a new email saying, hey, by the way, this is now no longer the Harris Walz campaign. This isn't going to anything. Oh, by the way, we lost, for the record. If you've been in a cave somewhere, it wasn't successful, but now it's going to go to the DNC. Like, I feel like there's got to be some kind of disclosure, or there's got to be an automatic sunsetting from the platform's perspective. But then again, I guess for the platforms, they don't care because they're processing each payment and they are beholden to the campaigns or to the parties themselves, which are, funding the parties.
Political parties, political committees, campaign committees, they are going to do everything that they possibly can to raise money.
Yeah.
Okay. They have one job. It's to win. And how do you win? Well, you need enough money to fuel your operation at a level that you see fit in order to be competitive. And yes, Kamala Harris raised incredible amounts of money and she still lost. Having more money alone is not going to necessarily win you an election. But we know, and we have evidence every year, every election cycle, for the modern history of politics in this country, that if you don't have enough resources, then the chances of you winning are very, very small. So you have to be competitive. It's as simple as that. And all you have to do is go back to Kamala Harris 2020 when she was running for president as a Democratic candidate and flamed out even before she had an opportunity to go to Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina. Why? Because, well, a big reason, she couldn't pay her bills. Like, she was running flat out of money and couldn't sustain her operation.
That's why campaigns end. Like, especially in the primaries. Like, yes, it's always going to be because I want, because I want to spend more time with my family, blah, 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 blah. They end because you can't pay the bills. And that's the only thing that pierces the ego and the belief of a campaign is no one's going to get paid. Do you all want to volunteer? Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, then now that's it. We're done. Time to say goodbye.
So, it just says that obviously when those are the stakes, and the difference between staying in a race and having to leave a race or being competitive and not is money, then you're going to pull out every trick in your trick book to ensure that you can have sustainability for the time that you need to. And also too, Kamala Harris, well, you might be asking, well, wait, she already lost. Her campaign is over. The committee is not over, okay? You have to pay off your debts. And if you don't, then your committee, technically speaking, we like to call them zombie committees. They begin to just exist in perpetuity. Newt Gingrich is a great example of this. His political committee, his presidential committee from 2012 still exists today. You can go to fec.gov and look up Newt 2012, and you will find that Newt Gingrich's committee still owes $4.63 million to dozens and dozens of creditors. Al Sharpton's 2004 committee. Here he is, doing his dog and pony show on MSNBC. Well, 20 plus years on, his 2004 presidential campaign committee is still in debt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to, again, numerous creditors. And they aren't the only ones. So Kamala Harris, we know that she ended her campaign in November in deep debt, and that they overspent their budget. They spent more for a whole variety of different things than they had money at that time. We're not going to know the full accounting through the end of 2024 until the end of this month in January, because we won't have new numbers coming out until then. So right now it's fuzzy math, and nobody really knows how deep the debt is, and she very possibly has raised money that's going to pay down a good amount of that debt. But it's quite possible that Kamala Harris's presidential campaign committee will continue to exist in zombie form for months or even years to come. Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign is a great example of that, where Clinton was upwards of $20 million in debt after she lost the primary to Barack Obama, and it took her about 5 years to figure out how to just whittle that down to nothing before she ultimately relaunched a presidential campaign for 2016 under a new name. So that's really how this works, or for some campaigns it doesn't work. And man, if you are providing a service to a presidential campaign or any political campaign, you better do so with your eyes wide open, knowing that there's a very, very good possibility that in the end, you're not going to get paid the money that you are owed.
Yeah, because everyone's just going to move on, except, of course, for the recurring payments. That will be continue to be debited to anybody who dared hit that button. Never. Listeners, viewers, never, not even once. Do not hit the recurring payment button. It is just a bad time. Set a reminder for yourself. If you really think that you really would want to do it, then it'll be worth it to go right back to that same portal. It's like 2-click these days. It's not going to be that much. It's still going to be a website that you can hit a button on. It is just bad news. I still think that there's a real meal to be made out of exactly the spending habits of that Kamala Harris campaign. Because when we get those final numbers, boy, am I curious. We had a lot of different rumors at the end of it that they were $10 million, $20 million in debt, possibly more. Boy, am I curious to find out how much they ended up in actual.
Well, we're going to have a lot more information, again, at the end of January when those numbers come out. But also, too, we're going to have, even if that still shows that there's a whole lot of debt, then the story doesn't end there. We're going to get quarterly updates going forward as to indicate how the debt is being dealt with and whether the debt is being dealt with. And if Kamala Harris has any idea of running for president in 2028 or 2032 or whatever the case may be.
Or governor of California.
Or anything else. If she wants to seek public office, again, that's something that she's absolutely 1,000% going to have to deal with, because you can only imagine the bludgeon that will provide her opponent when saying, well, oh, you're great with money. You can run a country or a state, and you can't even run your own campaign because you're still X millions of dollars in debt. That's just that's untenable. So it's going to have to get dealt with again if she has a hope of running for office in the future.
All right. Well, we will keep an eye on that. Dave, where can people find you?
You can find me at davelevinthal.com, where all my work lives, and today on rollingstone.com.
On Rolling Stone. What a scoop. What a scoop. Great reporting from a great reporter and an even better man. Dave Levinthal, the money man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. You're too kind.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. If you want to send me an email, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Follow, find, and share video clips of our show, Justin R. Young, on TikTok, Instagram, and X. Politics. If you want to find us on YouTube. If you want to hit me off with a little beer money for the trip to DC, you can do so. PayPal.me/payjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. You can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. And I will spend that money on bar tabs. That's a promise. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week, either $3 a week, $12 a month at the monthly level, or, and this is the best deal, $99 for 1 year. Set it and forget it. That's 150 episodes of PX3 for under $100. Cheese, Louise with cheese. And of course, our founding tier, get your name read at the end of the podcast, like these fine folks: L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Oh Yeah, It's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Just Another Pilot, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will Porta, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, a dog named Checkers, Gloria Young, my mother, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. You want your name read on the show? One place to do it, TakePoliticsSeriously.com. On Friday's edition of the program, we have a really great episode, man. We're going to talk to somebody who was a longtime friend of Jimmy Carter. We're going to get some good Jimmy Carter stories. And I'm thrilled to do that interview. But that's Friday. Till then, if you are on our Substack, I'll see you on Thursday. But either way, a reminder. Some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. Still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show Audio.